All right, welcome everyone to another BC Dance Passion Tea Chat. I don't know if that's what we're going to call it. We'll probably change the name every time we do an
Did
episode.
you say tea chat?
Tea Chat.
Like we're drinking tea?
Yeah.
When was the last time I drank tea?
I drank tea last night.
Okay. I would like coffee chat better.
Okay. BC Dance Passion Coffee Chat. Episode 2. And today we're talking about our relationship.
Relationship goals.
Which is funny because we've been listening to 3 weeks worth of sermons now.
Yeah.
We
relationship
watched, goals.
Yeah, Transformation Church.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Todd, Pastor Mike Todd. And his recent sermons have been about relationship goals.
Right.
Reloaded.
Yes. So the reason we wanted to talk about it is because we've noticed something over the years, like we've had people ask us the question, like, how do you, first of all, let's talk about who we are real quick. We are husband and wife. We are small business owners. We own a business together. And we're also dance partners, which means we perform and compete and teach as well as a unit. All of that is done as a team. So we'll have people ask us, how does that work? Because you guys eat together, you sleep together, you train together, you teach together.
You work together, you perform together, you compete together. We do everything together.
Yeah. So people will ask us, how does that work? Because it's kind of like this, perplexing thing to them. And then we've had other people be very sweet, and sometimes they'll say it in person, or sometimes we'll post something on social media and they will, they'll say like hashtag relationship goals. And it's charming and we think it's a compliment. But, some people, it's nice that some people look at us and think that we are sort of the image of what a good relationship should look like. So that's why we're going to talk about it and maybe talk about specifically what it is about our relationship that makes it work. This isn't like we're giving advice to all couples, right?
No, all couples should take, no. No, this is more of just like, this is our story. This is, an answer to the question that a lot of people have asked us throughout the years. So it's, us just being real because, we have beautiful pictures and beautiful videos on our social media and we love each other really like deeply, but we also deeply, deeply hate each other.
We despise each other some days.
I hate him sometimes. I hate you sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, especially, when people are trying to portray a beautiful, perfect life, they don't show that side. It happens to everyone. And I think that the more transparent we are, especially when people are like, oh my gosh, you guys are the cutest couple ever, which is super, super sweet. And we don't want anybody to think we have like big heads over that. And that's why we always bring it back to, you should see us practicing sometimes because
it can get nasty.
In all reality, I think all relationships are like that. And today we're just kind of like talking about how do we work through stuff like that and, things that have happened to us throughout the years.
Yeah. So I think, to the question of how does our relationship work, the super short answer is our relationship with God. That's like, if you wanted to sum everything up, that is one of the aspects, that is one of the largest aspects of how our relationship works. But of course, that starts with, who we were when we first met, and then our personal growth, not only individually, but together in that relationship with God, and how it has literally taught us, like, what my role is as husband, what Chelsea's role is as wife, and then how we're supposed to interact with the world together with him at the center of our relationship. So, that's the short answer. But I think I want to start off with some of the things that were sort of foundational when we first met each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to get into the whole backstory of how we met and everything like that. But basically, when I first met Chelsea, my older sister was a friend of hers and had already sort of built up Chelsea in a way. You know what I mean? She was like, oh, there's this girl at the studio.
I had no idea.
Yeah, you didn't know. But there's this girl at the studio, and she's really cute, and she's going to be a professional soon, so you guys will be able to hang out. And like,
we were working in a dance studio at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when I first met Chelsea, I already felt like I sort of had an idea a little bit about who she was. And, dance was sort of I guess, the means of which Chelsea and I got to know each other. So we already had something big in common that we were both passionate about, and that was dancing. So that was sort of the springboard or the vehicle for us to start forming a relationship. And it didn't even start as a romantic one. Well, for me, I had...
You were like stalking me on, when MySpace was a thing.
Right.
You were like stalking me. I still had no clue.
Yeah, like
You're a creeper.
I was a creep. Like on her MySpace, she would have like pictures of her drawings, and I was like, "Oh my god, I love to draw." And then she had pictures of like her with a guitar, and I was like, "Hey, I'm learning guitar," and she likes dance, and I like dance. It's like this woman was carved out of marble for me, or something like
marble.
Yeah, like a statue.
I see.
So I felt like you were made for me, and maybe that affected how I started interacting with you straight away. Because when I first saw you, I still remember what she was wearing and everything.
I thought we weren't going into this, but we are.
No, just a little bit. But when I first saw you, I think I thought to myself, like, I'm going to marry her one day. Like, I already had it in my head.
See, stalker, creep.
Yeah, she had no idea. So, anyways, let's talk a little bit about, like, we started off as friends, and I think that's key. Like, that's very, very important, is that we had a foundation before we even got into a romantic relationship. So what did that mean for you?
For me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that I grew up homeschooled and in a Christian family and everything. So when it came to dating, it was kind of like I had gone on a couple of dates, but it was more... My family wanted it to be more of like an interactive thing where it's like it's called courtship. So, and that was, at first, it was like hard for me to kind of comprehend, and I was like mad about it. But, at this point, I think, how old was I? Like 18 or 19 when we met, or 18. I think. Mm-hmm. At this point, I was kind of just like over guys. Yeah. That like came and went extremely fast for me.
Yeah, what, you had like 2 or 3 dates and you were over men?
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 dates, and I was like, no, I'm never doing this. Why do people obsess over this? This is awful. I hate it. So then I threw myself into dancing. So when it came to us kind of like hanging out and everything, I looked at it, because I was brought up a specific way. I think I had, the tendency to be like slower about it, but also in those couple of dates that I had with different guys, I was like, everybody, why is it such a rush? Like, I felt rushed.
Yeah.
And so I wanted nothing to do, like, anytime, and if you're somebody who knows me, if you try to push me to do something, I'm going to do the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. So if you, don't even try it with me. So when it came to you, it just was easy. We were friends, and I knew you liked me, but you knew that I was like...
She's like, I'm 18, I'm focused on my career, I'm going to be a professional dancer, like, there's no time for men.
I'm 18, I know what I want in my life.
Yeah.
That's funny. But, I mean, you, like, my kind of test for you is like, is he really going to stick around after I say this? Mm-hmm. And if you didn't, then, oh well, there goes another dude that was, like, trying to rush everything.
Yeah.
So... It was just you were okay with just being with me. And that's what I wanted. There was like a freedom of like, I don't feel like I have to rush to get into this relationship because, he's going to go here or going to go there or going to go find some other girl. And it's not that I was like holding on to you or anything, but I just felt like it was just so easy with you.
Well, I think, fun fact, I asked Chelsea if she wanted to start dating. And she told me no, she just views me as a friend, which is like, oh my gosh, crush my soul.
You're so dramatic.
I know. So I like cried for a night, and then, of course, not in front of her.
His pillow was sopping wet the next morning.
But then after that, like, of course I was upset, but I still really wanted to hang out with her because I loved making her laugh. I was just completely enamored by everything that she did. So I still wanted to hang out with her. I really enjoyed her family. That was because I had just moved to Ohio. So like I lived with my sister, but I didn't really have a community that I had built because I was fairly new to the area. So I feel like
he was like a little stray cat that I felt bad for. I'm like, We have to save him.
So you brought me over to your house to like meet your family.
We have to feed him and give him a home.
Yeah, and your mom fed me, and then I just like kept coming back, right? So, ladies, there's the key. Hopefully, you or your madre can cook. Just give him some table scraps, and he will keep coming around. But yeah, after she said no, we just continued to remain friends, and I think my goal all along was like, I'm just gonna,
Creepy pretend.
what's that saying? Like, if enough water runs over a rock, it'll smooth its edges over time.
How's that working for you?
I'm the water and you're the rock.
Yeah, is
and
that
I
working?
I just smoothed your edges. So I hung around long enough to make sure that you would be mine.
Anyway.
Still creepy. All right. So anyways, those were some of the sort of foundational feelings that we had, is just that we've always enjoyed each other's company, and there was no expectation of, okay, we're going to have our first date, we're going to go to the movies, and then at the end of the movie, I'm going to kiss her at the front door, and then after that, we're going to go
if you tried to do any of that stuff, I would have been scared.
Yeah.
I would have been like, whoa, dude.
So these checklists that you see in movies just need to go somewhere else, because it's not how like our relationship started. I don't even think it's how a good relationship starts. That's just my opinion,
it's just
though.
kind of like a make-believe or a makeshift way of going about it.
But, so moving into our next point, I think something that was really important, that you knew that you wanted, and this is the thing that I think people misunderstand about someone who is younger than themselves, or even young people in general, is just because a young person does not know how to articulate their feelings or their thoughts as well as you can, doesn't mean that they don't have future goals or desires that are mature. So, for instance, like some people are like, what's your 5-year plan?
I love that question.
At what point in time are you going to, have your children or buy a house or get a dog? Or, they just lay out this weird structure you're supposed to adhere to. But I think Chelsea had in her mind, she wanted to be with someone who had a relationship with God, or that was, well, I want you to articulate
I was
that.
going to say, is this my story, or is this Brandon telling my story?
Go ahead.
Like, what is this? No, I had a sense of, which I was brought up really well, but one thing that I was not willing to budge on was I wanted him to be a follower of Christ. I don't care who it was. Like, I cannot sacrifice my relationship with God for the sake of a relationship with a guy. I don't know why I felt so strongly about it. I think it was because of my upbringing, but it was really important to me. It was very important to me. And when it came to you, I think that's kind of why I kind of kept you at arm's length at first, just because you were a Jehovah's Witness at the time. Mm-hmm. And we disagreed about a lot of stuff. A lot of things that were extremely important to me. But it wasn't like oh, I'm going to change him. Like, I'm just going to make him, what I want him to be, and he can do it, blah, blah, blah. I think it seemed that way to people, probably especially to my parents. They were like, you cannot change this boy. But I wanted you to want it. Right. I wanted you to want a relationship with God, which is something that you didn't really understand, which is a completely different subject. I don't even think we should go down that alley today.
I think that is a podcast in its own.
Yeah. So,
but needless to say, I think we had two different upbringings as far as our faith, but we both always felt like God has been present in our lives, mm-hmm. and I think you sensed that.
I could sense something that I think I tried to explain to my mom one time. I was like, he has this passion for God. It's misplaced. He feels like he has to do a checklist. Like, he literally feels like he has to do things in order to, win favor with God. And I knew that you had it in you, and maybe it was the Holy Spirit telling me, like, keep at it. But I knew it. I was like, this he would be an amazing guy. He would be an amazing man of God.
Thank you, babe.
Oh, you're welcome. And I was right. I'm always right.
Still working on it.
But yeah, so that was like one of my things that I really wanted. Like, that was like my, okay, this has to happen, or no.
Yeah.
but I wanted you to want it yourself.
Right. So you had that as a standard. And if Chelsea is so strong-willed, and I think that's one of the things that I completely admire about her, is she is not swayed easily. And that's not even like she's stubborn or she's pig-headed or anything like that. She knows what she wants and she goes for it. And I find that to be an extremely attractive trait. And something that's kind of funny is, like, we both grew up in families. Like, I'm number 4 out of 5 kids, grew up in a house of 7. You are, number 2 out of 3 kids. You grew up in a house of 5. So we're used to sharing our lives pretty closely and intimately with other people. But then as the nest started to empty, like the older brothers and sisters were going and, finding their own way, getting married, getting jobs, all that sort of stuff, and moving away from home, I went from being completely reliant on my family as my community to being kind of an independent person. And when I met you, you were very independent, which someone who knows us now would probably not believe. They'd be like...
Because they're like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, do you guys do anything? I don't think we get that as much anymore, and I'll explain that in a minute as to why people don't ask this question anymore. But people are like, do you do anything without him? Like, you need to do something without him. He needs to go away, or I don't know, would you get that from... I would get that a lot from girlfriends.
Yeah, and I would get pushback from, like, my male coworkers or guy friends or stuff like that. They'd just be like, oh my gosh, cut the umbilical. That was the phrase, cut the umbilical, because they, like, thought we were joined in that way, or, like, we were, like, Siamese twins of some sort, because... we moved like those, those fish that look like one big fish because they all swim together.
I'm sure.
We're 2 tiny fish like one big fish.
How romantic.
That's the goal, guys.
Can you draw that?
I'm going to draw it. Where were we going with that?
I lost it.
Okay.
We don't get asked that question anymore because we had values together.
Okay, yeah. So this is something that is kind of unique to our relationship, but we had to cultivate it. And I think that there was outside forces working in that were, like, working against it. But, let's talk about the typical relationship. Like, we always, I sort of make fun of it. But, like, he has his guys' night, and I have my girls' night, and I go to the salon, and he plays poker with the boys. And, like, you're 2 people who live in the same home who have... these separate lives. You work separately, you raise your kids differently, you have these different activities that you take interest in together. And it's just completely different from how Chelsea and I wanted to function. Again, we were both independent, but when we came together, it was like one. Yeah, it
like
only made sense.
I never wanted to be away from you, and I don't think it was because I still am an independent person, and like, sometimes I have to, tell you it's okay. Like, I can go on a walk. We'll survive.
Yeah, because I get nervous when she like goes anywhere without me. I'm like, what if something happens?
But I think that that thing again where people are like, you can't do this, and I'm like, watch me. Or if they say, I want you to do this, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do it. I never have and never will go with I'm not going to go with everybody else's expectations or with the flow that everybody else is on. I always want to be like swimming upstream. But what was I going to say? Outside forces. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. So there's a lot of people that are like, you need time away from him. You guys are 2 separate beings. Like we need to talk to you separately and all this stuff. And I was getting at one point in our life, we were getting a lot of pressure from where we were working mainly, which is where we lived. So a lot of them were like, you need to be separated, or you need to stop showing affection, or whatever it was. And we were always professional, but I just felt this kind of like attack. That's how it felt to me. So then I went the complete opposite. I was like, Brandon, wherever you go, I go. Wherever I go, you go. Like, if that's what we both are wanting, then we need to start showing people this is how it is. If you want one, you're going to get the other.
Right.
And, because that was such an important part of our life for me and him, that's how it is now. Like, it's crazy. Like, we were just talking about it today, is like, that was the one thing that we were like, we're not going to budge on this. Like, if somebody says, hey, we want to bring in a coach, let's bring in Brandon and Chelsea. Or, hey, we want to bring in a show, let's bring in Brandon and Chelsea. Like, it would never be separate, which in our workplace, typically if there's like a dance couple, a studio will bring in just the male instructor or just the female instructor, and then they're separated, which is fine for some. But I was like, I don't want that. I want something different. And so that's another podcast, is like how we created the price range for all of that. Like, really clever, in my opinion. I know it's our idea, but I think it's clever. And it's working now.
Yeah.
It's like so crazy that we actually get to teach together, we get to travel together, everything.
Yeah. So I think, just to put it into a little bit of context, like when we, again, and you already tapped on this a little bit, but like when we worked in a studio together, you know, we were both busy. Like, I was teaching a ton of lessons, you were teaching as well, and then you were doing all kinds of other admin work around the studio. Like, we were constantly kept busy. Yeah. There was no...
Clean the toilets, clean the baseboards.
Yeah. So there was no downtime when we worked in the studio, and that was fine. We were there to work. We were both professional, and we weren't gross either. You know how there's like those couples who just have social graces whatsoever.
Right. They're just like constantly like sucking on each other's faces.
like an open mouth tongue kiss just for the entire world to see.
Or just being awkward.
Yeah.
Like, with the line of work that we do, we literally, like, we're dance teachers, but our students come in to escape, you know, their day-to-day life. Our students come in to have fun and enjoy themselves. So they're not there to like hear about our relationship. They're not there. Our students are very supportive. So they always want to hear our stories and stuff. But we were very professional from the very, very beginning. Like, we didn't ever want our personal life to interfere with our work life. And I think that is one of the main reasons we're able to make all of this work.
Right. And that was another point, is like, and you brought that up earlier when we were talking today, but just saying, you know, when we came home, we were home. And when we were at work, we were at work. So we were very good about compartmentalizing that. Because you don't want like, as a dance instructor, you don't want your personal life to bleed into your lessons. Because let's say, like, I had a flat tire on the way to work, and, you know, someone drove by me and a puddle splashed on me, and I'm just like miserable, and I get to the studio and my student equally had a hard day at the office or whatever, and they ask me how I am, the appropriate and professional response would be, yeah, I'm doing pretty good today, or so, you know, just be casual. But instead,
or be positive, even if it was, well, I had issues with my car and everything, but despite all of that, I'm great.
Let's tango.
I don't even think we would mention that to our students.
We wouldn't,
though.
because
so it's like,
when you were at work, the curtain was up.
Right.
Like, that was our saying, is like, it wasn't that you were putting on a show or lying. It was just like, you have to be a different person.
Be
now.
respectful for that person's time.
Right.
And, you know, as you get to know your clients, you build these great relationships with them. So you're able to talk to them about more personal things, but even still just being respectful of the fact that they're paying you for a service, and you want to make sure that it's worth their time and money.
Yeah. And you show up.
Right.
So basically, you know, you don't want your personal leaking into your professional, but then it was flip-flop the other way around. Like, Chelsea and I wouldn't get back home and then automatically be talking about, you know, oh, I need to do this tomorrow at the studio, or this happened to me today, or, you know, you can talk about your work, but if it ever got to the point where it would like get you riled up, or you'd start having an argument or something, like, it's just not worth it. You never put down your work for the day. And I think we were both really good about...
Not that we didn't have our moments.
No, but we were both really good about, like, when we clocked out, we really tried to clock out and just be with each other at home. And that's one aspect of making it work when you work together, which is unique to our situation.
Right, which I think it makes it a little bit easier, too. Like, people that have completely separate jobs, they're coming in home with completely separate issues.
Right.
So, you know, one person had a great day, one person, which we had those too, but at least we have an understanding of what each other is going through for the most part.
Right.
That's a whole nother topic too.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we kind of understood, you know, the environment and what was going on.
Mm-hmm. So I think what's crazy is, like, as Chelsea and I do these podcasts, you know, we're just thinking to ourselves, like, we'll start talking and we'll talk about one thing and we're like, well, we could literally spend an hour on that one subject, or, we bring up another point and we're like, well, we could spend an hour on that subject. Like, there's just so many places where we could go deeper into all this stuff. But do we need to put a bow on it? Do we need to start wrapping it up?
Wrap it up. Put a bow on it. Make it pretty.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did. All right, so we don't get confusing. Let's just do a quick little recap. Okay, so how it works is we have God at the center of our relationship, and that needs to be like its own thing. Like, we need to
do a podcast just purely for that.
Yeah, how our faith and our growing relationship with God has changed both of us, because
separately
and then
together, because that's the crazy thing is like your journey, my journey, and then our journey together is just
they're both pretty wild,
pretty crazy. Yeah.
So I mean, that's like, we try and keep him at the center of our relationship, and of course, we're human, we fail in that area, but that's really been one thing that has been the one special thing that
would be our encouragement to you guys. If you're not a Christian or anything like that, maybe this stuff is kind of confusing, and you can always reach out to us and ask us questions. But for other Christian couples out there that are working through stuff, like, just remember that that's your go-to. When one person's not making sense or neither of you are making sense, always bring it back to the source of true love. And then from there, it's not easy, but then from there you can start to work out your issues together and separately.
Right. Exactly.
So if you guys have any questions, feel free to message us. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, subscribe to our YouTube.
Yeah. We're almost, as of this recording, we are almost to 1,000 subscribers.
Goal for 2020?
Is to have 2020 subscribers.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
So if you guys have, we said a lot of stuff in this podcast. I think we already know what we want to do next. But if you have questions or you want us to do a specific
subject,
I cannot speak, blah, blah, ask us and we'll do it.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.